Hello, my name is Kindson Munonye, and thank you once again for joining me as we continue from where we stopped on the project time management knowledge area. Today we are going to be looking at Xmake activity duration. Xmake activity duration follows from Xmake activity resources that we discussed before now. Xmake activity durations is the process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities with estimated resources. So the key benefit of this process is that it provides the amount of time each activity will take to complete, which is a major input to the develop schedule process. So there we are going to be looking at the duration, the number of work periods to need to complete each activity, looking at the resources that have been estimated. And this is important because let's assume you have a particular work package or a particular activity you want to complete, and then you budgeted a particular amount of resources for it, and then the resource is not enough. You may have to extend the time it takes to complete this activity. So what we are saying is that you can't perform estimate activity duration without performing estimate activity resources. That's the point. So estimate activity resources must follow from estimate activity duration. Alright. Estimating activity durations uses information on activity, scope of work, required resource types, estimated resource quantities, and resource calendars. The duration estimate is progressively elaborated, and the process considers the quantity, the quality, and availability of the input data. For example, a small detailed and precise data is available about the project engineering and design work. The accuracy of the duration estimate improves. So the activity duration estimate is progressively elaborated as more details are available. The activity duration estimates. This process requires an estimation of the amount of work effort required to complete the activity, the amount of available resources estimated to complete the activity. Okay. These estimates are used to approximate the number of work periods needed to complete the activity using the appropriate project and resource calendars. All data and assumptions that support duration estimating are documented for each estimate of activity duration. Alright, let's now take a look at the ITTOs, that is input, tools and techniques and output of estimate activity duration. For the input, we have the schedule management plan, we have the resource calendar, the resource breakdown structure, the activity resource requirement and output from estimate activity resources. And we have these two items, activity list and activity attribute from the define activities process, and we have the risk register, activity cost estimate, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. We'll spend some time looking at these inputs to understand how they apply to estimate activity duration. And of course, we have about 6 tools and techniques to estimate activity durations. Expert judgment always comes first. Analogous estimating, parametric estimating, 3-point estimating, group decision making techniques, reserve analysis. Then we have outputs of the estimate activity duration process, and there are 2 of them: activity duration estimates and project document updates. Let's zoom in into this item to see how they apply to estimate activity durations and see how it becomes clearer as we move along. We need a schedule management plan to estimate activity duration because the schedule management plan defines the methods used and the level of accuracy along with other criteria required to estimate activity durations, including the project update cycle. Another important input is the activity list. It's needed for us to estimate activity duration. This is very clear, and of course supporting activity attributes that helps to explain or give more details about these activities. We also need activity resource requirement for us to estimate activity resources, to estimate activity duration, and the estimated activity resources requirement will have an effect on the duration of the activity, since the level to which the resources assigned to the activity meet the requirement will significantly influence the duration of most activity. So this is, for example, if an additional or lower skilled resources are assigned to an activity, There may be reduced efficiency or productivity due to increased communication, training and coordination needs, leading to a longer duration estimate. Alright, so let's now look at resource calendars. Okay, this is very important because resource calendar influence the duration of activities, because the availability of specific resources, types of resources, and resources with specific attributes might be taken into consideration. For example, when staff members are assigned to an activity on full-time basis, in general, a skilled staff member can be expected to complete an activity in less time than a relatively less skilled staff member. So let's take, for instance, you go to the HR department and you tell them, I need 2 computer programmers for my project. They tell you, no, we just have 1 computer programmer for you. So what it means is that you now have to split the time for this computer programmer into the activities you need. You may have 50% of the time he works on one activity, and 50% of the time he works on the other activity, and this means that the resource calendar, when they are going to be available, the resources will affect the duration estimate. Another input to estimate activity duration is the project scope statement, and the assumptions and constraints from the project scope statement are considered when estimating the activity duration. Examples of assumptions include existing conditions, availability of information, and length of reporting periods. Examples of constraints include available skilled resources and contact times and requirements. Risk register is also an input, as well as resource breakdown structure. Risk register helps you to say whether there are risks that can impact on activity duration being estimated. Enterprise environmental factors is also an input to activity duration estimating, because factors like duration estimating databases, productivity metrics, published commercial information, and location of team members are enterprise environmental factors that can affect estimate activity durations. Organizational process aspects are also needed, for instance, scheduling methodology, lessons learned, historical duration information, etc., etc. Tools and techniques for estimate activity durations include expert judgment, guided by historical information, can provide duration estimate information or recommended maximum activity duration from prior similar projects. Expert judgment can be used to determine whether to combine methods of estimating and how to reconcile differences between them. Right, let me talk to this guy. Just give me a second. Sorry, can you record? Can you help on? Alright. So, a little distraction there, but they are saying that expert judgment is one of the tools and techniques for estimate activity duration. Let's look at another tool and technique, and that is analogous estimating. This is a technique for estimating activity duration using historical data as basis for estimating. So, when estimating activity duration, this process relies on actual duration of previous similar project as basis for estimating the current project. So, analogous estimating is a gross value estimating approach, sometimes adjusted for known differences in project complexity. Analogous duration estimating is frequently used to estimate project duration where there is limited amount of detail about the project. A little more about analogous estimating. It is generally less costly and less time consuming than other techniques, but it is less accurate. So, analogous estimating can be applied to a project that may be used in conjunction with other estimating methods. Analogous estimating is most reliable when the previous activities and the previous project are similar in fact, not just in appearance, and the project team members preparing the estimates have the needed expertise. So what we are saying is that we have a project that was completed last year, and then you you have a similar project this year and you are going to perform duration estimate, okay, you might look at the data from previous projects and then use it to estimate activity duration. But the more the similarity between this project and the previous project, the more accurate your analogous estimates will be. The third tool and technique will be parametric estimating, which is an estimating technique in which an algorithm is used to calculate the cost or duration based on historical data and project parameters. So parametric estimating uses a statistical relationship between historical data and other variables to calculate and estimate for activity parameters such as cost, budget, and duration. Let's take a little more look into parametric estimating. Activity durations can be quantitatively determined by multiplying the quantity of work to be performed by labor hours per unit work. For example, activity duration on a design project is estimated by the number of drawings multiplied by the number of labor hours per drawing, or on a cable installation, the meters of cable multiplied by the number of labor hours per meter. So if you have a previous estimate, that is an announcement because I'm making this recording in an airport, so that's a little distraction there. Alright, sorry for that distraction. So we are discussing on parametric estimating. For example, if the assigned resource capability for installing 25 meters of cable per hour, the duration required to install 100 meters is 40 hours. What we are saying is that you know the amount of time it takes to install a particular amount of distance of cable, 25 meters per hour. So now you want to install 1,000 meters, okay? You can easily calculate the parametric estimate by multiplying. You have 40 hours times 25, and that gives you 1,000 meters, okay? So when you talk of parametric estimating, you are talking about making a little calculation to arrive at an estimate based on a mathematical calculation on a known estimate. So this technique can produce higher levels of accuracy depending upon the sophistication and underlying data built into the model. So parametric estimates can be applied to a total project or segment of a project in conjunction with other estimating methods. Alright, so a little more on parametric estimating. Parametric estimating is a technique in which an algorithm is used to calculate cost or duration based on historical data and project parameters. So each time we are talking about parametric estimating, we are talking about duration estimate, we are talking about cost estimate. So it means that when we move into the project cost management knowledge area and we are going to estimate costs, we are also going to use parametric estimating. So parametric estimating uses a statistical relationship between historical data and other variables to calculate and estimate for activity parameters such as cost, budget, and duration. Activity durations can be quantitatively determined by multiplying the quantity of work to be performed by labor hours per unit work. So if it takes 10 meters, if laying 10 meters of cable take 5 days, how many days will it take you to lay 100 meters? You simply multiply 100 meters will take you 10 times 5. Okay, so a little mathematical calculation there, and you quickly arrive at the duration of 50 days. So 10 meters take 5 days, then 100 meters will take 50 days because it becomes 5 times 10. Okay, so I think it's clear. If not, spend some time, maybe pause the video and spend some time seeing how the calculation goes. So having looked at expert judgment, analogous estimating, parametric estimating, and now the next tool and techniques used for estimate activity duration is three-point estimating. What is three-point estimating? We are going to spend some time here. It means that you make three estimates and put them together. It's as simple as that, because the accuracy of a single point activity duration estimate may be improved by considering uncertainty and risk. The concept originated with the Program Evaluation and Review Technique, and that is PERT for short. Program Evaluation and Review Techniques, PERT. Let's spend some time looking at the three-point estimating. PERT uses three estimates to define the approximate range of an activity's duration. So these 3 points, these three estimates, one of them is called the most likely, and this estimate is based on duration of an activity given resources likely to be assigned, their productivity, realistic expectation of availability for an estimate, and dependencies on other participants. So most likely estimate, like this is the most likely estimate, I think, most likely amount of time is going to take to complete this activity on this project. Then we have optimistic estimate. So you make an estimate based on a best case scenario for the activity, and you make a third estimate, and that is the pessimistic estimate based on the worst case scenario for the activity. So you have these three estimates. You make the most likely, I call it TM, the optimistic estimate, I call it TO, and the pessimistic estimate TP. So you have a formula you use to put these three items together to come to just one single estimate. So there are two formulas to use to calculate or to make an estimate if the estimate is to be three-point estimating. One of them is a triangular distribution, and the formula gives you that the estimate is equal to the optimistic plus the most likely plus the pessimistic over 3. So what we are saying is that you take the sum of the optimistic, the pessimistic, and the most likely, you sum them together and divide by 3, and you get your estimate. The next formula is called the beta distribution. The beta distribution goes this way. The estimate is the sum of the optimistic estimate plus 4 times the most likely estimate plus the pessimistic estimate divided by 6. So what we are saying here is a beta distribution also has another name. I'm trying to remember the beta distribution. Okay, we'll come back to that, but now what we are saying is that since the most likely estimate is the most reliable estimate, we are assigning a weight of 4 to it. So we are multiplying it by 4 before we divide by 6. For the triangular distribution, you just sum the 3 estimates and divide by 3. So duration estimates based on the 3-point estimates with an assumed distribution provide an expected duration and clarify the range of uncertainty around the expected duration. So let's take a quiz now. What is the expected duration if optimistic estimate is 4 days and most likely 7 days and pessimistic is 10 days? So pick up a calculator and do it, and you find out that the answer will be 7 days. Now if we are going to do the same calculation using beta distribution, we have optimistic for 9 days, most likely for 15 days, and pessimistic for 25 days. For me, I got 16 days, that is 15.7, and if you have this, you can round it off to 16 days, although the rounding off you do here will be determined by the schedule management plan, which specifies the units of measure. Is it to be rounded off to days, or to hours, or to minutes, or to seconds, as the case may be? Although I'm not think you may just have to round off anything to second, maybe to hours. Okay, so let's now look at the 5th tool and technique used for estimate the activity duration, and that should be group decision making techniques. And prior to this time, when we define activities and when we collected requirements from the project scope management knowledge area, we talked about group decision making techniques. So what we are saying is that you have a group of experts coming together to discuss an idea, and then they come out with a decision. Some team-based approach might be brainstorming, Delphi techniques, or nominal group techniques. Remember that Delphi techniques solicits the input from experts that may participate anonymously to the discussion, and then nominal group techniques enhances the brainstorming section with a vote, if I'm not mistaken. So group decision making techniques simply has to do with engaging team members to help you improve your activity duration estimates. So this might also improve the accuracy of your estimates. Alright, so we now take a look at the last tool and technique used for estimating activity duration, and that will be reserve analysis. Duration estimates may include contingency reserves, sometimes referred to as time reserves or buffers, into the project schedule to account for schedule uncertainty. So what we are saying here is that you make an estimate, you also want to add a reserve to it to handle uncertainty. That does not mean that you need to pad the estimate by saying, okay, I'm making an estimate of 2 weeks and then I'll multiply all my estimates by 2. That will not be reserve analysis. Reserve analysis, you want to make some provision for risks or uncertainties. Of course, these uncertainties have to be identified and documented in a risk register. Contingency reserves are the estimated duration within the schedule baseline which is allocated for identified risks that are accepted, for which contingency or mitigation responses are developed. So what we are saying is contingency reserves are built into the schedule baseline. And contingency reserves are also called time reserves or buffers. Let's continue our discussion on contingency reserves. They are associated with known unknowns which may be estimated to account for unknown amount of work. The contingency reserve may be a percentage of the estimated activity duration, may also be a fixed number of work period, or may be developed using a quantitative analysis method such as a Monte Carlo simulation. Alright, so contingency reserve have to be separated from the individual activity estimate and aggregated into the buffer. So what we are saying is that for you to get your baseline or your schedule baseline, you have these activity duration estimates. You aggregate them and then you add them to the contingency reserves you've determined, and then that forms your schedule baseline against which the performance of the project is going to be monitored. Now we also have management reserve. Okay, management reserve is different from contingency reserve. Management reserve is not part of the schedule baseline, and they are specified amounts of the project duration which held for management control purposes and are reserved for unforeseen work that is within the scope of the project. So in as much as management reserves are not within the schedule baseline, they are also reserved for the work that has to be within the scope. So what we are saying now is that management reserves are specified amount of time reserved for unforeseen work, okay, but they have to be parts of the scope of the project. Management reserves are associated with known unknowns that might hit a project due to uncertainties that might not have been foreseen during the planning processes. A management reserve is not included in the schedule baseline, but is part of the overall project duration requirement. So this is how it goes. You have activity duration estimate. Activity duration estimate is added to the contingency reserve to form the schedule baseline, and the schedule baseline is added to management reserve to determine the overall duration requirement for the project. Alright, let's now look at the two outputs of the estimate activity duration process, and one of them is activity duration estimates, and these are quantitative assessments of the likely number of work periods that are required to complete an activity. Duration estimates do not include any lag. They may include some indication of a range of possible results. For instance, if a duration of 2 weeks may have 2 weeks plus or minus 2 days. Okay, so plus minus 2 days is a range of possible results. So you have 2 weeks minus 2 days, and ranging from up to 2 weeks plus 2 days. So it can be something like 12 days to 16 days. So you have a range. So that is what activity duration estimates will be all about. They also have, it might be percentage probability of exceeding 3 weeks. So we have let's say 3 weeks duration with 85% probability that it will take less than 3 weeks. Alright, another output is project document updates. They may include updates to the activity attributes, updates to assumptions made in developing the activity duration estimates, such as the skill level and the availability, as well as the basis for duration estimates. So on this note, we are rounding it off on Xmake activity duration. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me, and as usual, I'm taking you back to the ITTO's page, where we have to, you may spend some time getting your head around the ITTOs, and please join me in my next presentation, as I'm going to now discuss develop schedule, and that will be the last planning process of the estimate of the project time management knowledge area.